The future to come in 20 to 30 years. Can it be predicted in the times of global uncertainty? How to map out the contours of the future so that they are more clear and bright. And what can be done by those who are today called the new generation? In today's program, Daulet Sharipov, a person who's not afraid of challenges.
A person who does not test themselves, doesn't set up challenges for themselves, does not grow.
Daulet Sharipov, intern surgeon, 7th year student, actively engaged in sports, member of Kazakhstan's first skiing expedition to the South Pole.
Before heading out to the South Pole, I had never taken part in an expedition, one that entails heading out for a hiking trip for more than 3 days. I was preparing myself more psychologically. Of course, I read a lot about the South Pole. On the last day before departing, when it was time to catch my flight, I thought, goodness, what did I sign myself up for? But I think this always happens when you are planning to fly out somewhere. This slight anticipation of the unknown always causes a state of trepidation. But you just have to say, since you started this, then you must finish it. If you are scared, then there is no point in even trying.
Казахское географическое общество направило открытое письмо.
The Kazakh Geography Society sent an open letter to the Kazakh National University, our medical university, asking if there are young scientists who would like to conduct scientific research in the Antarctic. I submitted my application at the last moment. They called the next day after the consultation and said that for now I fit their requirements, but that there are plans to have a hike across the Kokzhai-Lao to the mountains. At that time, there was very heavy snowfall in the mountains. It was interesting that there were these weather conditions which were ideal for letting a person know whether they can get through this or not.
Самым главным моментом, безусловно, было, что я хочу исследовать, что я хочу произвести.
The most important part was what I wanted to research, the results that I wanted to obtain from this expedition. This is the first. And second was that I worked with the emergency medical services and had the skills of providing first aid. And I think this was a certain advantage before the other candidates. And third was physical preparedness.
И третий момент это была, конечно, физическая подготовленность.
Так, это мои лыжи.
Here are my skis, the boat, a tent named after Bolhasan, and such background.
Вот такой фон.
The team which visited the South Pole in 2016, aside from me, included the traveler Maghjan Sagimbayev, an alpinist Yuri Yushin, and Ilyas Galimbekov. Before commencing the expedition, our plans included reaching the highest point in Antarctica, the Winson Peak. Come on, Maghjan, come on. Go Kazakhstan. The ascent was planned to be completed by Ilya Galimbekov and Maghjan Sagimbayev, and they dedicated it to the anniversary of the country's independence. They did great. They reached the peak precisely on December 16th and returned to the camp on the 18th. And 3 days later, we headed out for the South Pole.
21 декабря.
December 21st, the first expedition day. I've got wet, I've got frozen, I've got calluses on my feet. It passed only 3 hours and I already want to go back home. But I hope everything will be fine.
Ну, надеюсь, все нормально будет.
на Южном полюсе все наоборот.
At the South Pole, everything is reversed. When it is winter here, for those 3 months of the South Pole, it is summer.
Наступает лето. Солнца вообще нет.
In the summertime, the sun never sets on the South Pole. When you wake up in the morning, it is already high up. At 12 o'clock, it is at its peak. And when you go to sleep, it is closer to the horizon. In the morning, it is once again above the horizon.
Утром снова выше горизонта. Там нет никакой живности, нет ни дерева.
There is no wildlife there, no trees, rivers, not a single leaf or grass blade. A completely white desert, I think this is the right way to describe it. Therefore, there is no life there, absolute silence. Wind and silence and insane cold.
Тишина. И при этом сумасшедший холод. Мы шли 11 дней. Прошли более 220 километров.
We walk for 3 days, cross more than 220 kilometers. Every day we walk for 8 hours. Considering the hike itself and the time that it took to prepare for sleep and then prepare for the next day's hike, we only had time to sleep.
Подготовка к выходу, к самому походу, у нас осталось время только поспать.
День 6.
Day 6, December 26th, year 2016. It turned out today we will rest for the whole day. One of the crew needs to rest.
Будем отдыхать.
Во время нашей
During our expedition, we were planning to conduct scientific research. We measure our pulse, blood pressure, and breath frequency. Also assess the psycho-emotional state using a special survey. Overall, the research had 2 components: to evaluate how the expedition itself and the surrounding conditions of the Antarctic affected the psycho-emotional state and functioning ability of the expedition members. How a person adapts not just psychologically, but also physically.
ну и физиологически. Лично для меня это было.
Personally, for me, this was the hardest part. You're already tired, everyone wants to sleep, and here you are bothering people. Let me measure your blood pressure, your pulse. Please answer the survey questions. The people are already tired, and you're irritating them even more.
Не только в физическом плане, но и материальном.
It is very difficult to conduct research in the Antarctic, not just physically, but also in terms of material resources. Therefore, there is not a lot of research like this, and even smaller research projects are highly valued.
И то, что вообще критическим периодом адаптационным является 4-й день.
And we already published the results of our research that the 4th day is considered to be the critical adaptation period.
Условиях, когда
This research can be useful in a lot of spheres of people's lives. Concerning the psychological component, we assessed how the emotional state and behavior of a person changes throughout the expedition. In conditions where there is only contact with a small number of people, and when there is no contact and the surrounding environment bears no life.
тишина.
1 января 2017 года, час 51 ночи, прибыли на Южный.
January 1st, 2017, 1:51 a.m. We've arrived at the South Pole. Today was physically the heaviest day. Our journey has just ended. Our mood is fine. Finally, everything is finished successfully. No one is ill. Everybody is healthy. Happy New Year to everybody. Greetings from the South Pole.
Всех с Новым годом. Привет с Южного полюса.
Жизнь такая штука, она не останавливается, она...
Life never stops. It passes at a fast pace, and new and interesting events happen. But the expedition to the Antarctic was one of the brightest stories that I was always going to remember.
Одна из ярчайших страниц, которых буду вспоминать. Я родился, вырос в городе Шымкент, Южно-Казахстанской области. У меня каких-то...
I grew up in the city of Shymkent in the South Kazakhstan region. I did not have any doubts when choosing my future profession. I'm not a spontaneous person, and when I start something, then I already know the goal that I want to achieve.
Я уже знаю, куда я хочу прийти. Целенаправленно шел.
I was set on getting into the medical school and took part in international Olympiads. We were admitted without having to pass the unified national testing. We received sort of a carte blanche. We could get admitted to any university that we wanted.
Хочешь поступить?
Initially, I chose Astana to be as far away from home as possible in order to probably become more independent.
Наверное, самостоятельно. И первый курс я...
In my first year, I was studying with such enthusiasm that even looking back now, I am surprised at what I could do.
стаж, что я мог. нравилось. Я хотел испытаний для себя.
I liked this and wanted to challenge myself. I wanted some obstacles, and if they weren't there, I would create them myself. Because I had this yearning desire to prove myself, but not by taking shortcuts, but through hard work, studying every day, taking on more difficult tasks. I think that this way we become more confident, and so did I.
Таким образом, мне кажется, мы обретаем уверенность в себе. Ну, а дальше у меня как родители.
I'm the only child, and they started insisting on me coming to Almaty. Once I transferred to Almaty to our Kazakh National Medical University, my so-called game did not end. The environment was different, but the goals that I set before myself were the same, and so I continued with the same spirit.
В кавычках, она не закончилась. На данный момент я являюсь интерным хирургом.
At the moment, I am an intern surgeon. The learning process during the internship is completely different from my bachelor studies. There is more independence here, more practical and clinical experience. If before you were just part of the audience, then at the moment, at this stage of my internship, you become an active participant.
Становится действующим лицом.
Where is the spleen? The spleen is at the opposite side from the liver. Find it. Here it is. Right.
Конечно, можно уйти полдня проучиться.
Of course, it is possible to study for half a day, go sleep, or play computer games. And whatever I did not learn today, I can learn tomorrow. And so this constant postponing goes on forever until you find yourself behind. One must always be in the game, ready to push oneself further than you can.
Толкать тебя дальше, чем ты можешь. Мы юридически можем работать как санитары, как помощники фельдшера.
By law, we can work as medical attendants, paramedic assistants. I worked at the emergency ward. There you help patients who suddenly get worse. You support them, measure blood pressure and other parameters. If you, the person, feels down in spirit, you have to lift them up.
Если человек упал, то его нужно поднять в этом плане. В первую очередь я хотел набраться опыта, отточить определенные навыки.
First and foremost, I wanted to get enough experience in polishing certain skills. This is very useful experience for me, not just in terms of the goals that I set, but in terms of communication with future colleagues, patients who are always not in the best state. So this is stress resistance, ability to overcome these conflicts.
То есть это все-таки стрессоустойчивость, способность преодолевать эти конфликты.
My father loves sport, and since childhood I joined him, went jogging. And for me, sport is one type of pleasant activity. I relax regardless of what it is. It could also be CrossFit.
Это может быть тот же кроссфит. Это не тот вид спорта, где ты отдыхаешь.
CrossFit has become more popular in the last years. This is not the type of sport where you can rest. This is the type of sport where you have to push yourself to the limit, where you discipline yourself and truly become bigger than you are.
Больше, чем ты есть. Когда ты участвуешь в команде, ты должен знать свою команду. Ты должен...
When you are part of a team, then you have to understand what are the weaknesses and strengths of your teammates. Our team is quite new. We did not really know each other, but nevertheless, it was a satisfying experience for us.
При этом, я думаю, мы получили удовольствие от этого. Лично для меня...
Personally, for me, my studies and sport are not something that are exhausting for me. For me, this is relaxing, actually. If you like everything, then you get satisfaction from it, because the most important is to enjoy what you are doing.
After completing the internship training, Daulet Sharipov is planning to continue his learning in a residency program. For his specialization, he has settled on neurosurgery, which is considered to be one of the most difficult fields of medicine. Every surgery entails great risks. Not just the life of the patient depend on the actions of a neurosurgeon, but also the patient's personality, ability to think and act. That is why this specialization entails great responsibility. Daulet is ready to perfect his knowledge and professional skills in order to live up to this task.